Okay, so I'm going to talk on the topic of dream work. So anybody who knows me probably knows that I'm very into dream work. And I've called this talk Dream Work for Connecting with Our True Nature, using dream work to raise consciousness and move towards wholeness. Um, so when I'm talking about consciousness here, I'm really talking about being conscious in our day-to-day lives about the nature of our relationships, for example, and understanding patterns of relating and how we're affected by our upbringing and things like that. So I found that using dream work enables me to understand how I've been shaped by life and by my environment. And by having that awareness, I can make more conscious choices rather than reacting to things from an unconscious motivation. I like working with intentions. So I often will set an intention before I go to sleep, asking for guidance or for information about something difficult in my life. So I put an intention here, which is a general intention for dream work, which is to overcome social conditioning and wake up to life. I think Joe posted a post a little while ago, which I really liked, which was sort of saying that we start with awakening to something spiritual, and then the challenge is to bring that into our waking life. That really resonated with me. So I'm going to share a dream which I had, which has kind of influenced my work with dreams. So this was probably about 7 years ago, when I just sort of started having some awakening experiences, let's say. So I was sleeping and there was a thunderstorm outside. And then there were 3 flashes of lightning, and I heard the words clearly: personal power, personal power, personal power, 3 times. I wasn't kind of spiritual at the time or anything. I thought I was going a bit crazy. I was actually really embarrassed. I was in therapy at the time, and I shared that with my counselor. And I remember being like quite ashamed that what is that? I didn't even know I'd never heard the term personal power before. It didn't mean anything to me. But that experience, it was a very physical experience too. It wasn't just the words and the light flashing. I literally felt that lightning in my body, like it was bouncing around inside my body. It was a very physical experience. So that was really what caught my interest in working with dreams. And after that, I really started to pay attention to what the content of my dreams and what it might be telling me. When I pulled out this drawing that I did, I also found this little phrase, power and innocence, which I've been having some dreams about innocence recently. So I put that in there as a bit of a reminder to myself, really, that I'd forgotten that was a bit of a theme at that time. Yeah, so I put this diagram in, which kind of gives a bit of my view of how we're conditioned through life, and how dream work can help with helping us understand and unravel that. So the little yellow dot is representing the moment of birth. Obviously, a lot of people believe that we come in with karma, past lives, etc. That's not something I particularly explored. I'd be quite interested to do that in the future. But my journey's been very much focused on sort of the here and now, and being present and applying what I learned to my real, like, day-to-day life. So yeah, from the moment of birth, we have a lot of life experiences. We become conditioned socially, and that leads to soul loss. So parts of our soul become lost along the way through the way that we're conditioned and our experiences. This is obviously my view. It may or may not resonate with me, but this is kind of how I view life, and helps explain the way that I work with dreams. So when we're born, we come in with certain attributes. I believe we come in with our true nature, temperament. Anyone who's spent time with different babies will know that they already have their own temperament and their own personality. We have our potential or power. So we often talk about people having potential, but to me, potential is there already. It's like if you plant a seed, you know that that seed is going to grow into what it's intended to be. You couldn't plant an acorn and expect to grow a sycamore, for example. We have natural talents and abilities, and then we might have sensitivities. Probably quite a few people identify as being highly sensitive or an empath, for example. These are just a few examples of things we come in with. And then we're also assigned a body at birth. So we take on physical attributes, genetics, gender, and our physical body, for example. And then from that moment, we're shaped by relationships. So I've used this analogy of a tree trunk with the rings. So it said that every ring on the tree trunk represents a year. And you can tell from looking at the rings, like maybe what the weather was like or the environment of that tree. So this particular one, for example, you can see it's a bit lopsided. So that probably tells us something about maybe where the light was, or maybe there was an obstruction or something on the other side of the trunk. So as we go through life, I'm kind of picturing the way that we're shaped as a bit like this tree, that we have more and more experiences, and we're shaped in this example by relationships. So starting with our immediate family or our immediate caregivers, extended family, we go to school usually, friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, etc. Why this is relevant to dreams. So often people talk about having dreams about people from their past. So it could be that they have dreams about people from school, for example. So what I found is that when people dream about somebody from their past, so there's somebody that they were at school with, probably there is something about that relationship which the person is unaware of. So that's drawing their attention to, maybe it could be an event that happened with that person where the person lost part of their sense of self, or it could be the nature of the relationship. Maybe there's a pattern of relating, which is symbolized by that particular person. It could be involve kind of doing a bit of shadow work. For example, it could be denied parts of the person's personality, which they've lost, either good or bad, or shut out of their awareness. I put spiritual guides on there as well, because if we have, I'm talking really about people in our waking life, but it could be kind of symbolic spiritual guides as well. But I found that as I've kind of gone through my journey, I've had people I looked up to from a spiritual point of view, and that can actually kind of limit our growth, because if we look up to somebody, it's possible that we outgrow that person as well. So I put that on as kind of like something to be aware of. Pets and animals, also very interesting, because pets and animals tend to be quite uncomplicated and see us how we really are. So when we dream about them, I'm very much a cat person, so I've always loved cats. But I have a dog at the moment, and my dog often appears in my dreams and is kind of guiding me, telling me something about myself. Then we have our social environment, so religion. An interesting thing I find about a religion is a lot of people have dreams or visions even of religious people, religious leaders who are not from their own religion. I think that's really interesting. I'm not sure if that is related to past lives maybe, or just something general happening in the collective. So again, dreams can draw our attention to maybe how we've been shaped by our religion, our culture, and lots of other factors that I've listed there. Health is an interesting one. I think dreams can also draw our attention to health issues. Quite often people dream also about hospital environments, for example, and that can be an indication that that person is healing in a healing environment. So that could, it can sometimes be very reassuring if you have a dream that's set in an environment like that, or sometimes there'll be a dream about a reconciliation, for example, which sort of draws our attention to the fact that we're making progress and we're healing and recovering lost parts of ourselves. I've also put on there wealth and attitudes towards money. That has certainly come up for me in dreams where I've realized sometimes my decisions are influenced by money. So yeah, really dreams kind of just highlight a lot of ways that we've been shaped by our lives, but also maybe things that are going on in our current life, so that we can be more aware of them and make conscious choices. And then I've put limitations. This is a really interesting one to me. So things that we're limited by. So it could be family or ancestral trauma. So maybe there's trauma in our family which is limiting us in some way. Dreams can bring up an awareness of that. Gender roles is probably the most interesting one that comes up a lot in dreams. Just because if you look at different cultures, you can see that the way that gender is viewed, or gender roles, is different in every single culture. But working with dreams enables us to connect with archetypes. So it's kind of like the pure, for instance, if we think about the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the dream enables us to connect with those archetypes so that we can cut through the social conditioning and see our potential. I've worked with quite a lot of women helping interpret the dreams. I would never do a direct interpretation for somebody. And it is quite fascinating to see how that comes up time and time again, a kind of feminine power, if you like. Emotional expression. So were we brought up in a family or culture where emotional expression is encouraged or discouraged? This could be relevant to gender as well, where women tend to be seen as more emotional and men as less emotional. You know, is that social conditioning or is it part of our nature? But dreams can bring up a lot of emotion quite often. If emotions are unexpressed in our waking life, they can be expressed in our dreams. So it's interesting to pay attention to any emotions that are felt, or even when you wake up, if you feel emotional, what could that be telling? Family expectations, so can be very limited by what our family expect us to do, and our role within the family as well. So for example, were you seen as the golden child of the family or the black sheep? Quite often those roles get very fixed, so it's difficult to change because the family, maybe if you've changed as a person or that role was unfair, your family might not be able to see it, but within a dream, that could come up as a theme within the dream so that you can clearly see it. Maybe it's unconscious, but it comes up as a theme in the dream, and then you can consciously work with it and see how you're being shaped by your relationships. I've also relationship to time. I have a lot of dreams about time, about being late, about scheduling things, having to do things in the most efficient way. And that's led me to do some research into time, because I was just curious, why does that come up so often? And I read a book actually on, it's called The Politics of Time, and that highlighted that we've only really been so attached to time for about 200 years when clocks became commonplace. But we're so driven by it these days, and having to be on time and having to schedule things and agree to do things at a certain time. Also, like the seasons, we tend to treat every day the same. We don't tend to recognize the changing in season and how that affects us energetically and physically. So that's something that's come up in my dreams that sort of led me to research and get curious about what the meaning of that is. And time is money is often, that's a common phrase which a lot of us buy into, but it's not always been the case, and it's not really true. Heroines, heroes, and role models. I think dreams can bring up, again, maybe like spiritual guides, for example, who personify something that we might not have in our waking life. So something we aspire to be that maybe we can't see in our day-to-day lives. And then I put a couple of core beliefs in there as well. So things that we believe, which are beliefs are not fixed. We can change our beliefs. So for example, if you have a family which has always said blood is thicker than water, that could be quite limiting, because it could mean that you always put your family first, and that you don't have maybe as significant relationships outside of your family. And another one, I'm nothing like my parent. A lot of people kind of like might think that they're nothing like a parent or another significant person in their life, and that can sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater, in that they're denying maybe some qualities that they don't like, but they could also be denying some good qualities that they have. So having dreams maybe about a particular person, a parent or a family member, repeatedly, could be drawing our attention to that we've actually sort of lost part of our true nature through that belief that we're nothing like a particular person.